Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank. He's Aaron William Freeland, and this is Leaf Talk. Um, I guess, I don't know, Aaron. We talked about the Montreal game. Um, no, we didn't on
Oh,
Saturday.
we talked about how important it was.
But we didn't talk about what happened
No.
because today's Monday.
Yes.
Hmm.
And the game was on
Oh,
Saturday.
I talked about it with David on his show. There you go. I got it. I'm good. All right. I'm all caught up now, almost. So I wrote this thing on Facebook, which I guess we can start with the. Okay, I'll just allow me to read it.
Sure.
Um, the Leafs are playing like exactly who they are, a team lacking enough young, improving, underpaid talent with none on the way. The Leafs in the core four era had too many of those, causing them to choose, as it turns out, I believe, the wrong ones to keep. Dubas and Shanahan doubled down on their wrong choices and sacrificed their future, betting on them with most of their top picks in multiple playoff runs. I love Toronto, and the Leaf fans deserve better. I love the Leaf fans too. Truth is, Burke said it best. This is a runaway transport going downhill with no brakes. Leafs fans, again, like so many times in the past 60 years, are in need of adjusting their expectations down. The positive here is if management figures out their part on keeping the roster healthy and build team character with those that will embrace the underdog role, they will have a chance to surprise. This team needs to leave the one that should win for a team that will win because it takes up the challenge of proving everyone wrong, including me and those like me.
Hmm.
Um, and let's keep this in mind because I want to accept what Aaron has said. I did include what Aaron said in there and what he has said. It's about injuries. And I did say in there if management can figure out how to deal with these injuries and make an impact on the team remaining healthy, boy, they better figure that out because right now it looks like an excuse. But in fact, the reality of injuries is they do affect a team's play. That's, I know it sounds like an excuse to many. I know some teams make injuries not a factor, right? Or at least not a factor all the time, right? So I guess that's where I sit with the Toronto Maple Leafs today. They're a team that was mismanaged for a long time, did their best to maintain the high level of hope that Leaf fans wished for, but while doing that, they also sold out the future. And now we're looking ahead. And I've tried not to blame the present management, right? But Trey Living did make a contribution to selling out the future because that Brandon Carlo trade, man, the Leaf fans are unhappy with that one.
The Brandon Carlo has not come as advertised, which is a difficult pill for a lot of us to swallow because he was supposed to be the guy what was supposed to save us. Um, his numbers with Riley last year were awesome. The fact that this performance has not been duplicated in this current calendar year and this current hockey season is, I think, what's causing a lot of folks concern. Um, Adding the fact that he's also injured, and that exacerbates the situation. Um, you know, you look at who they actually have in their lineup these days, and it almost feels like a build a team from an earlier version of the NHL 2K series. You know, guys like Domi playing center, Sammy Blais, Matthias Michelli, Easton Cowan. These are not necessarily names that you would associate with the storied franchise of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nor would one associate Troy Stetcher and Dakota Mermis at 5 and 6 as individuals on this particular roster as well. You look at Stolars, who's out, Tanev, Carlo, Matthews, Nyes, and Nicholas Roy listed as technically speaking day to day, but still drawing into the lineup for ice time reps. And it's just, I don't know what they're doing here, man.
I think I'd rather not give the impression of panic, even though uh, the hard facts lead to panic. Because the hard facts are this team has fallen to the bottom of the standings, and they're not the only team with injuries. So the fact they don't have company at the bottom of the standings suggests that the injuries and the team that they have are not good enough to compete in the National Hockey League right now.
Yeah, I do want to say though that the old Thanksgiving Day measuring stick doesn't necessarily apply. I mean, you look at the Edmonton Oilers, who were 5-12-2 at this point last season, who eventually went on to the Stanley Cup Finals. You look at St. Louis, who in the year that they won the Cup was in a very similar situation where they were dead last.
Florida. Look at Florida.
And, yeah, like all of these, it's not the end of the line per se. It is obviously a cause for concern, but I know there are fans out there that are tempted to set the whole thing on fire and kick it out into the river and see how far it gets. But
I don't think that's the answer. I hope what I said and what I wrote comes across as the challenge that this Leaf team has. I've said it from the beginning of the year. I've said, and I maintain, and I think I was correct in making these statements. They're a team that needs to play well with what they've got because they don't have drafts to get. So they're going to have to be good with what they have. The players they have are going to have to play better. The same thing is true, really, the poster boy for what I'm saying right now and here is Austin Matthews, where he has to prove that and I said this during training camp, as you know, he's a guy that has to drive the offense. He cannot be a trigger man anymore. That's not good enough for Austin Matthews, the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, on a number one line. And the problem is, and the issue for me is that you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And if the Leafs have to put all their eggs in one basket, so a guy like Nylander can feed Matthews, the other three lines are going to suffer. I mean, let's face it. The reality is Matthews has to show a little more drive. And this is not about, anything other, the drive to drive the offense, to work with. He's with a pretty good left winger. It's not like we're asking him to carry two guys on his line. Nyes carries his own weight. I don't think anybody will doubt that. In fact, Nyes offers characteristics that are beneficial to a guy who's going to drive the offense and is a trigger man. That is a guy who can go into the corner and get the puck, right? So they've got that. If you put Nylander on that line, you've got Tavares on the second line, and who else? This is the issue. So at the end of the day, somehow, the players on this team, the management, the organization, all of them have to somehow, and Aaron, I don't know how it comes about. They've got to sit down and inside their heads say, let's see what I can do. Forget what I can't do. Forget what's happened in the past. Let's start fresh with what we've got, and let's try to have fun playing the game of hockey, which we've played pretty much all our lives. This is the trap that every team that you talked about at the beginning of this conversation has to unwrap. Edmonton had to wrap the bad things that they were doing, get back to believing in themselves. Florida, the same thing. You talked about St. Louis, who raced to a cup. There have been many a team that in the season have not been so good, but have somehow found their way at this time of year, when the calendar changes from 2-5 to 2-6, that they discover their game and gain the confidence they need to move forward and to be a better team. I know the phrase is our process, but I think the process needs a trigger. So, Aaron, what's the trigger to trigger the team into a better, to go into that phrase of process? And the one that GM used, which is a connected process. How do they connect to a process that leads to being a winner? What's the trigger for that to happen? It has to be, in my opinion, and you can answer, it has to be Matthews playing like a star. It's just that simple. He has to play like a star. And if he doesn't play like a star, who's going to play like a star? You've got Nylander, you've got an aging great player in Tavares, but his big positive for Tavares is he's a guy who plays with a commitment. Not so much a star now, more of a commitment. That doesn't mean he can't score. That doesn't mean he doesn't get a lot of points. That doesn't mean he can't lead. But the star part of it are game changers. Who's going to be the game changer on the Leafs if it isn't Nylander and Austin Matthews?
And this is, again, a problem that we seem to have as fans and as media. And I've mentioned this before, Frank, and this should come as no surprise. I don't necessarily believe that it's going to be Matthews or Nylander. Far too often we hitch our wagons to a certain individual whom we anoint our franchise's savior.
Right.
And more often than not, it doesn't work out. Marner was supposed to be the one that was supposed to take us to the promised land because he had over 100 points for, during the regular season. That was supposed to carry us through. Austin Matthews had 69 goals. Nice. That was supposed to carry us through. Unfortunately, it didn't. Will Nylander held out. He was supposed to be the next big guy for us as well, but he was the only one that was actually scoring, but it wasn't enough. Collectively, I mean, when you look at the injuries, and you look at everything that is going on around the Leafs and the team right now, Tanev, don't know when he's going to be back.
That's a huge loss.
Don't know. Matthews, huge loss. Nyes, again, huge loss. Nicholas Roy, not so much, but still effective depth.
Only because we in Toronto don't know, his value. We've only, his sample size isn't big enough to, I don't think it's big enough to criticize him either.
No.
The kid needed some time to adjust to playing in Toronto, in fairness to him.
And the problem is, even with all of these players back, it may still not necessarily be enough.
But the thing is, we don't know. That's as much as what I wrote and what I said speaks to a problem of making, my point was in that little dissertation, my point was it wasn't the fault of the players. You see, those were bad decisions that management made. So now there's a new management. If they're going to, both sides of the equation, the management team and the players that remain with the Toronto Maple Leafs, they don't have a reason to think everything that's happened before now is their fault. Players are gone. New players are here. Old ghosts, yes, are a problem. Absolutely. But I just don't think, and I think you would agree, that this team has to flush the season they've had thus far. They have to figure out how to get healthy, because I truly believe it's beyond accidents. Like, people like to sell, a lack of health as an accident, like out of control situation. I don't agree with that. I think injuries can be mitigated by the way players train, because some players train and get injured because of the training. Some players play the game a certain way and they get injured. Some teams allow their star players to take a beating. Therefore, those players get injured. I'm highlighting a bunch of reasons why I say management and how you manage the team and how they play can affect the health of the team.
And I think the other thing that's concerning to me at this point of the season is the Leafs are supposed to have one of the best medical staffs out there. We can both agree that Rogers is paying top flight.
We know, put it this way. We know that we get this message that where the Toronto Maple Leafs can outspend their opponents, they do. That's the message we've been given as people
Now,
on the outside, right? That's the
the
point you're
other
making.
thing to take into consideration here is a lot of these injuries aren't necessarily contact injuries. They're injuries that happen away from the puck. They're injuries that happen during practices. There's stuff that lingers when it should have been fixed months ago, but is still ongoing. That to me
Example?
says, well,
Example, a groin injury. I just want to,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
exactly.
that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Example, a groin injury.
Groin injuries linger. High ankle sprains linger. Knee injuries linger. Speaking of knee injuries, Connor Hellebuck's out 4 to 6 weeks with a procedure on his knee to remove floating cartilage. Things like that, where they're overtraining, it feels like, because a lot of these guys are getting injuries that
You're
you
asking
don't
a
see
question.
unless
You're asking the question. You're
Mhm.
asking the question. You're not making a determination. You're just
No.
putting, yeah. I want to make sure
It
people
just seems
understand that.
odd to me that with a team with such an incredible medical staff and a sports medicine
Or the
department that,
finances. Or
as
the
they've said
finance.
before, time and time again, is par excellence. There's nobody on par with them when it comes to this sort of thing. Seems to have these same sort of RSIs and non-contact injuries that you would think would plague a team of youngsters who are going to the weight room for the first time and not lifting correctly and thus sidelining themselves during a season. It seems a little odd to me.
I have something for you that's based in truth.
Uh-oh.
Well, in fact, something based in fact. Last year, it was pointed out that the Leafs have probably, by 20% of any other team, they have more coaching and management staff than any other team in the National Hockey League. Question was asked, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? In other words, just because you spend the most money and have the most ways to accomplish a goal doesn't mean that makes the goal easier to achieve. You get what I'm saying? Too many cooks in the kitchen?
Too many cooks spoil the
Maybe.
broth? Yeah.
Hey, what do you think? I mean, sometimes I think sports and how franchises fare has to do with the uncomplicated nature of which they can put together a system, a way of doing things, and it's uncomplicated. It's simple. Sometimes simple is better than too TMI, too much information, right? What is that phrase? Oh shoot.
Too long, didn't read. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, it's the other term that I love, but now I'm drawing a blank. I'll see if I remember it during the show. Not confusion by, oh geez, well, it doesn't matter. I'll come up with it. It's a term you've heard before. We've all heard before, and it describes the situation that you could fall in because you have the ability to add input to the point where the input gets confusing when it's taken in from the people who need to take it in. All right, I think we've gilded that, Lily. Let's move on to specific things you wanted to talk about, and let's talk about Jacob Dubas. Played against the Maple Leafs, Montreal goaltender. He got a little bit of we talked about this many times. He got a cure for what ailed him playing the Maple Leafs on Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada.
Oh, and that was one thing that the Habs really needed, was putting a little bit of a tourniquet on everything, especially after losing 5 in a row. So, as often as Toronto has played the team that's good for what ails you when it comes to breaking scoring slumps, hey, they do it for goalies too. So they are not,
absolutely,
if not,
they
if
don't
not anything else, they
discriminate.
are equal givers.
They help
Exactly.
everybody.
Exactly.
That was sarcastic, not nice, but accurate as far as whatever. Yeah, that game was a harbinger, only because it's not I'm not going to call it a straw, but just it didn't have to be much bigger than a straw to break the camel's back, because now with that specific team winning that specific way, and forcing the coach to remove his goaltender, admittedly after the game, to say he was protecting his goaltender, it's not a good look, and that doesn't It doesn't speak well to the hope of this team. And it all added to the desperation that the fans are feeling, the anger, the resentment, and it can't be faulted. But like I said, I hang on to the last one of the most important points I made. Leaf fans have to adjust their expectations. This is not the same team that was favored to win a cup. This is a new team. This is a team that's going through injuries, a lot of new players on the team, trying to figure out, how to forge the strength that a team can be through time. And until they achieve that, until they forge some strength on this team, this is what the Leafs are going to be until that changes. So, lowering expectations, and I truly believe this. Lowering expectations, this team can still have a better playoff than they've had in the past. It's just a question of, are they as bad as we think they are? Will injuries, as they dissipate, and will a full roster look totally different than the team that we have now? Are they a lot better? I hope for Leaf fans. I hope for the organization, because they don't have anywhere to shop. They don't have the means to bring in players that, high-end players. They don't have, unless somebody wants, as the old days, they used to say, you can't trade a rowboat for a battleship. Unless somebody wants, a couple of rowboats and are willing to give a battleship for a rowboat, the Leafs are going to have to work with what they have. It's just that simple. So, and what they have right now is they don't have their number one goalie from the beginning of the year. Their new number one goalie was taken out early, and they didn't put Stolars in because he's unavailable.
And about the only choice that they have left is Hildeby, and barring that, Artur Zakhayamov and Vladislav Peksa all down with the Marlies. So, that's where we currently stand. There are some Leafs that are apparently closer to coming back, but not necessarily all of the way there. We're going from where a player has gone from day to day to 7 to 10 days, and now it's week to week. So, the walking wounded are slowly making their way back onto the ice, but they're not taking place in contact drills. They're just making sure they get some cardio in. So that's what's coming out of Leaf practice. So,
and the concern with some vociferous Leaf bloggers is one of the things that's pissing him off. If you watch him, you'll know who I'm talking about. If you don't, I won't tell you. Why aren't the Leafs telling people when these players are coming back? And that frustrated him more than anything. He goes, well, for goodness sake, tell us when they're coming back. Are they ever coming back? And that's another thing that causes problems with Leaf fans, because they don't know. And then while that's going on, we get news from Vegas that Marner hands the puck into the crease for an easy goal for the opponents, and that has gone viral because of his mistake. And it's like it was like a sympathy move on his part for the Leaf team, I guess. I don't know what's up with that, Aaron.
I honestly couldn't tell you. The results that we're seeing coming out of Vegas and the results that we're seeing coming out of Toronto don't seem to line up. The Leafs are actually scoring more per game without Marner, who was a 100-point player, than they are with him. Also, he was a huge part of the penalty kill. Our penalty kill is actually better now that he's not here, which is one of those sort of moments. I mean, Craig Berube does preach a very defensive style of hockey, but at the same time, we're giving away almost 3.6 goals a game. That's up almost a goal a game from last year.
Now, Marner was given a lot of credit. Marner was given a lot of credit on the defensive side of the puck by his coach, and he felt that that was an important part that he brought to the team. I know. I think that speaks volumes. I think that speaks volumes to the problem the Leafs actually have. It isn't that Marner's gone. No. It's that they don't have a team that knows how to play defense. that's all that's wrong with them. They know how to score, but instead of being opportunistic, maybe, we've seen it. Unfortunately, we've seen it from Nylander. And I just wonder whether that's an attitude, the coach, where this is where I was losing my patience with the coach, frankly. I like I said, I don't blame the GM and the coach of today for all the ills that are facing Toronto and that look like our Toronto, because of everything that happened in the past. But my thing with the coach is that I'm not happy with the coaching, this Toronto Maple Leaf coaching from day one. They have had no control over the shifts. The TOI, the shift changes have been atrocious. I mean, Aaron, don't take this as a compliment, but when you do your pickup hockey, you guys probably have better line changes than the Leafs do. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I certainly do, and it's certainly a concern.
There's an irresponsibility there that the coach has allowed. Like, Nylander should not be out that long. Ty Domi should not be out. These are people who've played hockey for how long? And you're telling me they can't figure out they shouldn't be out for a 2-minute shift? I mean, they can't figure that out. And I say it not because they're trapped in the end in the offensive zone or trapped in the defensive zone. They're in transition and they don't get off the ice. That's the part that infuriates me. And I saw that as sort of a middle finger to the coach, in my opinion. That's the middle finger to the coach. If they're doing things like that and they're that disrespectful of the coach and the team, then there's a problem. And that's where I got my, for a moment there, I was talking to David on his show that maybe they should get rid of the coach. That was at the root of why I thought, maybe they need a coaching change. This guy's not getting them. The one thing that a coach should do, and how many coaches they got behind the bench there? 3, 4?
Yeah, 3 or 4 coaches. And
right?
This is, if they get rid of Berube, that'll be their 4th head coach. It'll be Babcock, it'll be Keefe, it'll be Berube, and then the next trusted hockey guy.
But I'm talking about the guys that are behind the bench right now. They got a guy controlling
the guys that are running the defensive strategies, the guys that are running the power play, the guys that are running the forwards. I don't know what they're doing there. I think there's too many people behind that bench at any one given time. They're all standing on the monitor and obstructing Berube's view of it, and he's not being tough enough on the players. That's what it really boils down to: is nobody's sitting. You got to sit. If you're gonna lollygag, nobody skates slower than William Nylander when he's going for a change. Nobody. And
that's infuriating.
It's absolutely frustrating to me. You want to see guys that are doing stuff like that? I'll go watch a tight game where nobody ever wants to get off the ice. Yeah. I don't pay half a mortgage payment to watch these millionaire yabos take their time getting off the frickin' ice, because that's not the way I want to watch them play this game.
Because that's, I think that I guess I'm going to assume why it bothers you, and I'm going to take it bothering you, and I'm going to say to myself now, why would it bother Aaron, and why would it bother me? I think the reason it bothers me is that if they're not making an honest effort to go off the ice to give their guy the best shot at joining the play, how hard are they trying when the puck goes in the corner? How hard are they trying to cross the blue line at the right time? How hard are they trying to chase the puck into the offensive zone? How hard are they trying to chase a team that has a 2-on-1? And, all that, what that does is it raises the specter that they're not trying. When I see them do that, I guess I shouldn't look at it that way, because they're just getting off the ice, I guess. But I just
the way
don't
they're
like
getting off the ice.
I just don't like, Aaron, I'm like you. I just don't like it. Like, they should be skating to the ice, the boards, like it matters that you're going to give that guy replacing you the best chance to get in the play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the part. It seems very lackadaisical. It seems very uncaring. And it seems with a very sincere lack of effort. And what bothers me too is that's a point that that I see, and I'm wondering if the players think nobody's noticing how they're getting off the ice, Aaron. It can be the only answer. I can't believe they know how slouchy they look leaving the ice. I can't believe they know that. They must think nobody's noticing to be able to do something like that.
At any given moment, there are approximately 12 cameras pointed at the ice. We know exactly what they're doing every single moment. There's at
Now, are
least
we
3 follow
nitpicking?
cams. There's 2 behind each net. There's 1 in between the
Are
benches.
we
There's 1 by the
nitpicking,
penalty box.
Aaron?
We
Are
know.
we nitpicking?
I
Do you
think
think?
what we're coming up with here as fans with our complaints about the way the Leafs are playing are valid concerns that the Leafs need to look at. There is enough game tape out there where they can show this to their players and say, "Hey guys, these are the little things that you need to do better." And if you want to get this team back onto the right track and back onto winning and not have people throw their jerseys on the ice, even though technically they don't care because we've already paid for it, that's what you got to do.
All right.
You've got to make sure.
So, what we saw, I saw a clip of in the dressing room,
Hmm.
Berube, pointing at the former captain,
Yeah.
and he congratulated him on that victory, that overtime goal, and said, "That's the way we should be playing, guys. That's what JT did with that puck and winning that possession is what we should be doing." So I wonder if the complaints that I've had about Nylander and the complaints people have had about Matthews, would it not be fair to suggest that if a guy who is only an alternate captain is playing the way you, the coach, wants the team to play, and you're using him as an example, doesn't it speak to the lack of importance that a captain and the other alternate captains have, like Nylander and Matthews as the captain? The coach should be able to say to the captain, "Good job. You got to get your guys playing like you." But if you're not playing away, and the same goes for Nylander, if you're not playing in a way that satisfies the coach and or fans like you and I, what then helps the rest of the team play
Yeah,
that
we're not going
way?
to find a magic bullet to fix this in a 27-minute show, Frank. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, no, but
As
I'm
much
making
as we might like
I
to,
may
but
I'm making a simple
yeah.
point, and that is if the leaders don't lead in reality, not just come out and make nice with the media and answer questions and sound very, thoughtful and
Hmm.
intelligent. I mean, it's the passion. This game, the team does not have passion. They need to find their passion. Like I
Yeah.
said, and sometimes passion is equated to having fun. They've got to go back to remembering why they love playing hockey, and they got to remember how to play winning hockey. I mean, I can't imagine that every player has never experienced winning hockey. So there must be some experience in knowing what winning hockey looks like, and they've got to act on it. All right. So we've been baffled by the Leafs. We've been baffled by the statistics emanating from this season for the Maple Leafs. We know that Marner's not having the kind of year he had last year with the Leafs. So we know him and the Leafs of today are not playing as well as they should. Let's hope they can. To review the situation is we need to see a little more wump too. That's a Southern term that I picked up in football. Let's talk about the Raptors and the Blue Jays, the Raptors, the Blue Jays and the Raptors have a common thread running through them. The star players of the Blue Jays are playing well enough, and the other guys have done their share of picking up the team. We're seeing that with the Raptors, and it's rather refreshing for Toronto sports fans because the Raptors have picked up right where the Blue Jays left off, Aaron, and they look really good. I don't know how real it is. I don't know how long it'll last, but I got to tell you, Raptor fans enjoy it. Toronto sports fans enjoy the way this team is playing. They're playing with the kind of effort and desire that you hope that a franchise and its players will play with.
Yep. They won for the 11th time in 12 games. That's 7 games in a row, beating the Nets 119 to 109. RJ Barrett had 16 points. Scotty Barnes had 17. Jacoby Walter had 16. Brendan Ingram had 14, and Emmanuel quickly scored 13. Barrett unfortunately left the game midway through the third because of a sprained
Ouch.
right knee, but he did manage to get the steal, which led to a fast break dunk. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. Hopefully, the Raptors aren't going to start to play the same sort of games that the Maple Leafs do with how long their players are going to be out.
No, they told us
But
it was a knee sprain. They told us
yeah,
right away it was a knee sprain.
that's
So they're
already
already not
a
playing the
step
game
up
the
on the
Leafs.
Leafs. But yeah, so far the Raptors have been very, very good this young NBA season, and I'm hoping that this continues for a little while longer because we need it.
The Cavaliers have 6 players out, and now
Yep.
they have another one questionable. They're going to play the Raptors, and we're going to see what a professional team with a lot of injuries and 6 players on a basketball team when you only have, 11, 12 guys on the sideline altogether. So that's half the team that's out. So they should be easy pickings for the Raptors, but we'll find out. Without one of their RJ Barrett, we'll find out what they're like. Let's move on to tennis. And so Canada will host Brazil in the Davis Cup.
That's correct. We're going to be hosting Brazil in the Davis Cup qualifying tie in February. The tie is either going to be held February 6th and 7th or 7th and 8th. Tennis Canada will be confirming the details, including the playing surface and venue at a later date. They lost their first round qualifier last year to Hungary after rallying from a 2-0 deficit to force the 5th and deciding match. The team then beat Israel 4-0 in September in Halifax. This is a good way for them to having avoided starting the 2026 campaign in the World Group in a World Group 1 playoff stage. There we go. Too much verbiage. But yeah, they're sitting pretty at this point here, and beating Brazil will be a step in the right direction.
Stützle scores for the Senators. They win 3-2 in San Jose.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic goal. Their 7-game road trip is off to a really good start. He had 2 points, including the game-winning goal in the third. After their victory in Anaheim on Thursday, this is the second time in 3 days the Senators have come down from down 2-1 to win 3-2. This also marked the return of Thomas Chabot after his November 11th upper body injury. However, he appeared to injure himself again late in the third period while following through on a wrist shot. So he left the game and was in visible discomfort on the bench for the final few minutes.
Hallebuck's injury hurts for him because of the Olympics coming up, but Pionk's injury in losing the game to the Wild is one that they've got to. Winnipeg's really having some hard luck here with injuries.
No, it's really not going well for them. He's going to be considered day-to-day until the team has a better chance of reevaluating his setback. It appears to be a mid to low body injury. For those of you not necessarily in the know, that encompasses anywhere from the bottom of your rib cage to about the tops of your knees. It could be a psoas, it could be an adductor strain, it could be ribs, it could be a groin, it could be upper knee. You don't know at this point. Well, hopefully they'll provide us with a little more concrete information in the next few days.
Nazem Kadri of the Calgary Flames scores in the 4th round to give his team a 3-2 victory. Aaron, the former Leaf, doing well, and Calgary having a tough time this year, come up with a win against a really good team in the Stars.
He certainly is. They're 7-13-3 at this point. They've only got 17 points. That's one more than the last place Nashville Predators, though the Flames have played 2 more games than the Preds here. Matt Coronado and Joel Farabee staked Calgary to a 2-0 lead. Then Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz scored third-period goals for Dallas. Robertson now has his goal streak extended to 6 games and 13 goals. In the shootout, Kadri put Calgary in front when he went forehand to backhand and tucked it under the crossbar, and then coolly stopped Rupe Hintz. Going to touch on this a little bit later. Dallas right wing Mikko Rantanen was ejected in the final minute of the second period when he hit Coronado heavily into the sideboards from behind, leaving the Flames forward bleeding heavily to the face. If the name Rantanen doesn't sound familiar, he was also given a match penalty for boarding Romanov of the New York Islanders from behind, which caused a bit of a brouhaha.
Yeah, 2 and 3 games, so not doing well. And then we've got the Canucks and the Flames, and the Flames beat the Canucks 5-2, and the Leafs former forward who got picked up by the Canucks when his contract was terminated, David Kampf, whatever ailed him in Toronto seems to have followed him to Vancouver, and
Yeah.
he contributed to a loss. He wasn't the main reason, but he's one of the reasons.
No, he has had a tough go of it, and I'm not sure if it's because his timing is off, because he's missed games in the AHL that helped keep him fresh, but he did not look good in this particular game. And Calgary really should have been beatable because they just come off an overtime win, 3-2 the night before to Dallas. You know, Philip Hronek and Quinn Hughes scored for Vancouver, and Kevin Lankinen stopped 16 shots, but the Canucks have now lost 6 of their last 7. This is not a situation that Vancouver needs to be in. And again, injury woes or not, this is one of those times where you kind of wish that their depth would manage to get them a win, but it just hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't. And speaking of wins and needing wins, the Oilers needed a win, and they got it against their foil in the Stanley Cup final. 2 years in a row, they didn't win the cup against Florida. Florida did them a solid. The Edmonton had a losing streak underway, and thanks to Florida being the tonic, the Oilers ended up with a victory.
Yeah, Ross Levick scored twice. Evan Bouchard had 3 assists, and the Oilers topped the Panthers 6-3. Connor McDavid and Matt Savoie had empty netters for Edmonton to seal the win. Matthias Ekholm and Vasily Podkolzin also scored for the Oilers, who were back in Sunrise for the first time since seeing Florida celebrate its second cup in June. Skinner had 35 stops for the Oilers, who snapped a 3-game winless slide, salvaged a 3-3-1 record from their 7-game road trip. They also got a road regulation win for the second time this season. They were 4-8-3 away from home entering Saturday, with 3 of those wins in overtime or a shootout. Samoskevich, Reinhart, and Lundell scored for Florida.
Well, Aaron, we'll figure out how to solve the Leaf problems. Until Wednesday, we'll just have to contemplate and come up with the reasoning that will lead to a successful Maple Leaf team. I know we can do it. Well, okay, I'm not sure we can do it, but I do know that they need somebody to figure it out. Hopefully somebody figures out and maybe they get some players back and gain a little bit of confidence. This is it's a new experience for Leaf fans going back to before Shanahan was brought in. And we all remember what happened before Shanahan came in. We all remember the times that the Leaf jerseys were on the ice. And we also remember how the players almost seemed to say, so what? I don't care. Right. So
yep.
we'll see if this season can be salvaged. Only time will tell. And hopefully it is salvaged. And at least if the team can just play like I think they're capable of, and they're not playing the way they're capable.
No, they need to at least give the fans a couple games where it looks like they pretend to care, and we'll work from there. Winning is the best tonic, but at this point, I'm not sure if the Leafs are ready to do that sort of thing. So we'll see where this weekend takes us.
We'll find out. That's for sure. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Go Leafs.